So if you've been playing Driving Empire for a good amount of time, you will know that there are tons of vehicles available for the player base, and you will also know that a lot of these vehicles are actually widely talked about, widely used, and generally liked by the community. Now, there are also a good amount of cars actually in Driving Empire that seem to have actually been forgotten at this point, where people just don't really use it anymore, don't really talk about these cars anymore, and just overall just don't remember the cars. And basically what I'm going to be doing in this video is covering the top 15 cars that me and the people around me that I've talked to have found to be forgotten in Driving Empire. Now, I do want to get things clear here that these entries are based off my experiences, because overall a lot of the times I just won't see these cars in Driving Empire, and I myself probably would have forgotten about them ever existing in the first place. So it's totally fine if your friend uses it, or if you decide to daily drive one of the cars that are in this video, but like, please just understand and respect that these are my experiences, and me and you will probably have different experiences overall. So yeah, I guess without further ado, we can get right into it. So to start off our list, the first entry is the Pininfarina Batista. Now, I do want to get things clear that these are really just my experiences, because I wouldn't really be surprised if this is actually a common car. I haven't really necessarily been playing too much in the public search of Driving Empire, so I don't really have a good understanding of how used this car is. But overall, like, from playing with other people, I've literally not seen this car get whipped out once since its release in its original update. But overall, I'm kind of surprised that people just don't really use it, because it's an interesting car to say the least. But then at the same time, it also kind of makes sense because it kind of looks bizarre to say the least, and it's not really a special electric car in terms of performance, because there are other cars that can really match it and give you a better bang for the buck. So it's a decent car, but it's starting to get a little bit forgotten, and you know, not many people have really been using it lately, so I decided to put it here at number 15 on this list. Next up, we have the Mirage GT, and I know this is one car that many people will probably disagree with me on, and I won't really stop you if you want to disagree with me on this one, because like, I can actually see people driving this, and every now and then I actually do see people driving it. Like, it's not a terribly rare car, it's not terribly forgotten. That's why it's pretty, I guess, high in this list rather than like lower, like with the lower entries. But overall though, I did notice that this car is actually started to get forgotten. Like, I remember it was extremely hyped back when it was getting released. Like, everyone wanted this car, everyone was talking about it before then, everyone was insanely stressed that they would miss out on it. But overall, like, it's not really that bad. Like, the car, it didn't really do too much necessarily. Like, performance wise, it was kind of bad. Like, it wasn't terrible, but like at the same time, it kind of handled like a brake. Like, you would turn, but when you brake, it just became really stiff, and that was the problem with this car. It didn't really have any performance success. It was just more of a collector's car or daily driver. But eventually, people just started to lose interest. Now at this point, it's actually started to become one of the more rarer collector cars that you see on the road today. Now, it's not entirely forgotten, and I'm not saying that it is forgotten, but you don't really see people talking about it as much as you would have expected. So I decided to just give this car an entry in this list. Next up, we have the DB11, which is also pretty high on this list because it is not terribly forgotten. But then again, like, you don't really see too many people drive this car now that there's so many other available supercars at your disposal, and like, it's just kind of a car that's there. It hasn't really been updated, so not many people have really bothered to have to drive it around. Like, only a few people who are really just fans of this car really drive it at this point. Like, other than that, like, no one else really takes it for a spin. So it's not terribly forgotten, but it's starting to kind of get to that point where it is like one of the more forgotten cars, and that's why it earned its spot on this list. Next up on this list, we have the Spiker CA, and this is actually a car that I really just despise because I just hate how it looks. I don't know why, but anyways, for the Spiker, I mean, this car, it's really just a car that, like I said, it's just like all the other cars. Not many people talk about it anymore. Not many people even use it anymore at this point. And I mean, there are reasons for that too. like overall, the Spiker CA is like a collector's supercar, I guess. Like only people who actually wanted to collect cars really drive it, because for the money that you're paying, it doesn't give you any bang for the buck performance-wise. So not many noobs really use this car. Now overall though, like honestly, not many people like these days I've noticed have been really a fan of this car specifically. Like if they had a bunch of options to choose from, they would not pick the Spiker CA first, like over the other available options. So it's not really a common daily driver. It's actually pretty rare, and like these days not many people are really, you know, using it and stuff. And I do want to recall that I actually had a car pack, which is why it's kind of a bit more higher in this list. So lots of people actually were able to gain ownership of this vehicle. I think it showed up in a good amount of car packs, but overall it is kind of forgotten. Alright, now we have a car that I think many people can probably agree with me on, and that is the Carrera GT. Now, the Carrera GT overall was never really a car that received too much popularity from the start when it got released, because I mean, back in wait for it was already like $700,000 or 690 something, but overall it just wasn't something that people could afford. So not many people really went out there ready to go pick one up, and I was actually one of the few people who did actually get one. But overall, like, it was kind of used. It wasn't too popular, but it was still there, and it still got some use. But after the Jimbella GT was released, this car was completely just eradicated from people's minds. Like, not many people these days even use it. Like, and after that, it just lost all its use, because like people might be thinking like, what's the point of using this when you can just use the Jimbella GT? Now, to be fair, the Carrera GT had its own differences, had its own history, it had its own kind of nice sound going on. It's also convertible, and it is actually a nice car, but just overall, people just don't really talk about it now, and it's kind of just a forgotten car at this point. So following the Carrera, we have the F40, and yeah, this is basically a car that was never really used too much in the start, and at this point is barely ever used. It is almost completely dead at this point. Now I'm not gonna say that no one uses it. There are probably, I guess, maybe a small handful of people who still like the F40 and just use it because it's the F40. But if you're not an F40 fan or a classic retro fan, there is almost no reason to use this. It doesn't give you a nice retro classic car feel. The sound isn't really that great. The car has not been updated since it got released. Like, it's basically kept the same mesh for a really long time. Like, there's nothing new about it that's really worth investing your time into. So at this point, not many people ever use this car, and it's kind of just forgotten. Now to finish this list off, we have the Ferrari 296 GTB. Now this is something that many people might disagree with me on, and this was a car that I believe was released back in July, which was about like 4 months ago, and really after its release it just was barely used. Like, not many people ever found a reason to have to go out their way to pick up this Ferrari. Now I'm not saying it's a bad car and all, but for the price that you paid, you wouldn't really get that much performance out of it. There are just far better options performance wise, and as a collector, this car doesn't really have too much to offer. It's basically just a supercar. Now I mean, that probably applies to all supercars, but most collectors like to drive more expensive, higher tier vehicles, and this is not really a car that comes to mind for either party. So it's kind of just sitting there in the middle where there isn't really a specific breed of player that really likes to use it. Now I'm not saying there aren't people who use it. There are probably a good handful of players who still try to play around with it, but overall it's just kind of not used. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. Please drop a like if you did enjoy. Now I will be making a part 2 to this video, and yeah, make sure to go check that out when you're done with this. So I do also want to apologize for this really bad upload schedule. Like, if you didn't notice already, it's been almost 2 weeks since I last uploaded, and that is because I'm very busy with my life, and I actually even have like a whole announcement just covering why that is the case in my Discord server, or you can also find that in my community tab. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't already. And please do make sure that you join my Discord server if you haven't. Like, we actually have plans to do know when. It's not gonna be soon, probably November-ish during Thanksgiving break when we actually get time. But you know, that's worth checking out. I recommend that. And please do drop a like really helps out, like the algorithm especially. You want to help my my videos get seen by other people. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.